Hello, everybody. I am Kara Bunde-Dunn, the host of the Mediums podcast, and I am honored to have my dear friend Meghan Krause with us on the podcast today. She is a coach, a speaker, a facilitator, and a well-being expert in living a spacious life. Meghan, welcome to the podcast.
Hey. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Kara.
Thank you. And we've known each other a long time. We're fellow Gustavus Adolphus College grads from St. Peter, Minnesota. Go
Gusties will
Gusties.
shine.
Shine tonight, Gusties will shine. We won't do the whole thing for you all, just so you know. So Meghan, I'm so excited to talk to you a little bit about your own life experiences and your journey and your philosophy around this idea of spacious and expansive living. Can you talk a little bit about what that means for you?
Yeah. Just a quick hand is to think of the length and the breadth of life as being spacious, that we've got room, to enjoy life in its fullness. And
Do you want to start that again? So I missed the beginning. So start that. We kind of cut out. So do you want to maybe just start from the beginning of that answer?
Yeah. So for me, spaciousness means that you've got a life of great length and breadth, and it's a high quality of life. So there's roominess, there's space to breathe, to enjoy things like hobbies, and to have conversations that happen just because you pop over to a neighbor's house instead of kind of grinding and living a work-centric life. You have a life that is rich in so many ways, and there's room to breathe with it all.
I love that. Becoming and overcoming a work-centric life mindset myself, it took me a long time to get out of that. And I'm curious, how did you find your way into just seeing work as a thing and a part of what you do, but not like the centric part of yourself? Like, how did you move to that kind of way of thinking?
Yeah. I had a recent experience working in well-being, overseeing an employee well-being program for a top 15 US healthcare system with 26,000 employees across 15 companies during a pandemic. So that really shone a light on, okay, what are we doing with our lives? And yet I think my well-being interests come pretty naturally. I like to say that
Meghan, I'm so sorry, but okay, I went like a whole 30 seconds of nothing. I didn't get any audio. I don't know what we should do. I'm like, should we just do no cameras? Should we?
Yeah. We could try that. That's fine by me.
Okay, let's try. Dang it, anyway, what the heck? I truly think it's our team and spirit, like energetically being with us and interfering with our energy.
Yeah, totally.
I don't know. Okay, let's see. I want to be able to see your face. I hate that. Okay, let's just try that question again. I know it so sucks to not be in flow, but I just don't want it to be like where I missed 3/4 of your answer.
No, that's okay. Do you want it? Are we turning videos off, or
what do you think?
I'm cool with whatever.
I almost wonder if we should just chat for a little bit and let it like get in sync and then like get cracking on questions, and I'll just have them cut out that whole part.
Sure. Yeah, we can do that.
What do you think?
Should we chat about
You're a podcast expert.
Should we chat about our retreat stuff? You mean like none?
I just mean like just like this, like just chit chat away. That's gonna get edited out. Yeah.
Oh, sure. Okay.
And just see if we can get it flowing. And you, me,
you.
Yeah. It can be like, okay, all right, we're gonna go for it now. I feel like we've had a couple minutes of it, so we're just gonna start again, and I'll just tell them to cut back into like 4 minutes and change. Okay. Let's see where we want to start here. Tell me a little bit about how that approach of well-being and seeing things in a spacious and expansive way, like how did that come about for you, having carried some pretty serious, impressive things that you've done in your life? Like how did that settle in for you?
Yeah. Well, most recently, a light was shown brightly for me having overseen employee well-being for a top 15 US health system with 26,000 employees across 15 companies during a pandemic. But I can I can kind of look back at the chronology of my life and see distinct points that helped form this. I would say it's not a radical point of view, but it certainly is counter to prevailing themes in our lives. So, I like to say that my childhood was sort of this idyllic mashup of Little House on the Prairie, Leave It to Beaver, and Growing Pains. I mean, I
Oh, nice.
truly, I truly spent my time collecting eggs, shooting hoops, practicing piano, which was a total ruse to avoid dish duty.
Yeah, totally.
um, like I even made perfume from rose petals and orange peels for my science fair project. I showed my pet peg Heathcliff at the county fair. And so, like, it was a really great childhood. And my parents taught me food comes from our garden, our berry patches, apple trees, animals. They taught me the power of believing in something greater than myself and taught me to appreciate what my body could accomplish, whether it was playing football with the boys during noon recess or, you know, sports that went well into college.
Yeah, I
And they
tried to box you out in basketball in high school, and let me tell you, it wasn't for the faint of heart.
That's true. Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, not that that's true, but it's true. We played basketball together. um, and my parents taught me that good things happen when I reject convention and create my own path. And so I look at my career trajectory very nonlinear. I started out in marketing Haagen-Dazs ice cream. Not exactly hard to market, by the way. Pivoted into teaching in higher ed in media studies courses. Had a really seminal experience there where I use quotes, it's a loose term to say led a bunch of entering college students on a wilderness immersion experience to the Boundary Waters, even though I had never been camping before. I was a co-leader. There was a camping expert with us, but it was actually a really transformative experience for me that helped me appreciate Mother Nature and realize that I wanted to move into lifestyles of health and sustainability. And so I helped popularize the Blue Zones. It's a book.
Oh yeah. It's
People
it's a
probably have heard of
Netflix,
it.
it's a
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I helped get that, get Blue
Yeah,
Zones out there.
that's crazy, that part of your life where you're working for a startup, and like that was really ahead of its time too. And all the
Yeah,
work you did in it was really ahead of its time too.
yeah, yeah. And um, after that, I moved into, kind of integrating clean tech into sports and entertainment facilities, like pro sports facilities, also kind of a forward thinking endeavor, and then launching our first ever rewards program for better for you products that you put in you, on you, and around you. But what was interesting is in those capacities, I was a marketer, and I realized that I wanted to work more directly with people to understand why we do what we do in ways that either help or harm us. And there were some personal experiences of loved ones that helped inform this desire as well. And so I went back to grad school. I studied integrative healing therapies as well as public health. So, sort of individual level to population level approaches to health promotion. And then since then, I've worked as a director of well-being. I've launched well-being products. I mentioned my time in healthcare, and formally, became a coach. I've been trained in lots of modalities, and it's true that my life has taken a meandering path professionally. It's also what I'd say is sometimes I I'm ahead of I'm very forward thinking. I don't always get the timing right. Like, I'm like, yes, we got to push for this. We got to push for this. And people are like, what are you talking about? And then years later, it's, yeah, we got to push for it. And I'm like, I told you so. Anyway,
Yeah, I've always thought of you as somebody ahead of your time in terms of how you see the world, what you see that's possible for people, what's possible for yourself. I've just always saw you as somebody that's like that. That's just a little bit ahead of her time. And in the entrepreneur world, we call that the bleeding edge. So you're at
yes,
the bleeding edge of
yes,
innovation and forward thinking. And I do think people are starting to wake up, and they're starting to pay attention, and they're starting to say, well, crap, I kind of feel like shit. And I don't
Mhm.
think I want to feel this way emotionally, spiritually, work wise, like all in all of the ways. I don't want to feel like this. And
Mhm.
I think that you've been at that intersection of forward thinking in terms of how work and stress affect our lives. Like you have been way ahead of the curve on that. Do you want to dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, yeah, I'm happy to. It's true, and I would love to get my timing a little better on these things, but I do see part of my role as like being a beacon, and even just in my own body, they
Okay,
call
sorry,
it,
Megan. Try again. So
yeah.
we're just gonna key into that answer. We
Oh
cut
shoot,
out
it's
and
frozen.
we're I don't have ya full capacity here.
Okay, I'm back.
Hello,
You were,
hello.
can you hear me?
Okay, yeah.
So, what was the question?
Something around like work and stress and being really ahead of the curve in terms of that and not the hold that work has on us and the stress it causes us and how much we live our life for our work. And you have
Yeah.
been very ahead of the curve in that way.
Yeah, yeah, I see it as I see it in the work I do with individuals as a coach. I typically coach people who
Sorry,
are,
Megan. I'm
no,
just gonna
that's
stop
okay.
again.
Yeah,
I don't know what's going on. It's driving me nuts, but I know it's not gonna make sense when we only get the half of your answer.
yeah, that's
Ah.
okay. We've got a couple options. I could go to a public space and use the Wi-Fi, like the building Wi-Fi. We could just do no video. What
Let's
would you
try no
prefer?
video. Let's just start
Okay.
with no video and see. I'll shut mine off too.
So how do I do that here?
I think you do camera.
Oh, here we go.
Let me
Okay.
see if I. Okay, there. Okay, let's try it. So let's see. The only part about the camera off is I can't tell when you're cutting out, like because your camera it freezes for me. That's how I know. But we'll see if we can do it this way.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're gonna give this a go and see if maybe this works and it's better. Okay, so I agree with you. You have been ahead of your time. You are a pioneer in so many ways. And one of the ways that I really admire and respect in you is this idea of, for me, work was such a hallmark and such a pillar of who I was. And, you've really been leading the way in terms of how we need to reprioritize the importance of work and the stress it puts on us. Do you want to maybe chime in on that and tell me what you think about that?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. I come by this perspective honestly, in that having worked for startups, I saw the negative effect that it had on my health. And then, of course, I've studied it, and now I work with people all over the country in different industries who are facing the same conundrum of how to decouple their worth from their work, how to downshift from a work centric life or pivot from a work centric life. And so, you know, what's interesting is we have a lot of kind of unconscious ignorance about what's possible for us. And I'll use an example to illustrate this. I was working with a coaching client, and she was a senior director with Salesforce and very accomplished. And at the time, worked from home, had no set hours because they're a global organization. So they only had like 4 kind of core hours that they all had to be online at the same time. So it had a lot of flexibility. And yet, in the course of working with her, it didn't even occur to her to do something like take a walk in the afternoon to metabolize her stress after a difficult meeting. And I say that because it just goes to show that even the most accomplished among us are 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 kind of blind to what's possible for them to support their own well-being. And more formally, I working in a healthcare system, I encountered a lot of resistance, as though making time for your well-being was somehow a distraction from work and somehow detracted from performance, when in fact, quite the opposite is true. I won't bore you with statistics, but as opposed to thinking of these as in a one-to-one relationship where, one thing is fighting against the other, the opportunity is to think about how they're mutually reinforcing. And that when we think about performance, it's more about looking at activity and rest as part of the same cycle.
I think that's fascinating. And I don't mind if you throw some stats our way. I'm totally into all of it. Um, and how do you feel like that came to you, Megan? Like that it is a very progressive in this current state, maybe not so much today, but definitely within the last 5 years, a pretty progressive way of seeing that it's actually a benefit to your people and your company and all the other metrics that businesses care about. But like, how did that come to you? That, the way we're doing it is broken. The way we're showing up and living our lives is broken. Like, do you feel like that was intuitive within you? Did things happen that made that true for you? Like, where do you think this like came from?
Yeah, I think there's probably a little bit of everything there. But if I look at my own experience, a number of years ago, I hit sort of a nadir in my life where I I was experiencing sickness related to kind of months long unwitting exposure to toxic mold. And that came with a host of other effects: chronic fatigue, an autoimmune flare up, depression, anxiety. And I'd never experienced anxiety prior to that. And, not too long after that, a breakup with my long term partner. And I had sort of a professional listlessness at the time as well. But I thought, to what end are we doing these things? And this the same holds true today, but my own lived experience is what prompted me to get curious. Because like I said, I'd worked in well-being prior to that. I'd been a director of well-being for college. But it just, my own dysfunction really illuminated for me broader social patterns that were totally reinforced when I worked in the healthcare system.
I'm sure, because you're like, well, one, it's a very stressful industry and it's a very like turning the Titanic, I find, having been
Mm,
worked in healthcare consulting. It's like it's not an easy industry to turn around or turn the way they think around, if that makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah, definitely.
So, what do you think about how intuition or a wisdom within plays in your decision making and how you show up in the world? Like, how do you incorporate that into this business world that you live in and your overall personal world that you live in?
Yeah, I appreciate this question because it's one that I think I'm in constant dialogue with, and thanks to you, I am in increasing dialogue with. You know, you know, if someone poses an idea that's counter to the prevailing wisdom of the time, how do they have the chutzpah to stick with that point of view? And for me, it has been about connecting with my intuition, and that that's something that's been true for me most of my life, but to varying degrees of awareness. So I'll give you an example. When I was 10, my paternal grandmother died, and this was the first grandparent I was close to that passed. It was kind of the first personal death that I had dealt with. And not too long after she passed, she came to me one night. I thought at the time it was a dream, but there were aspects of the experience that couldn't have been a dream. And I remember distinctly her standing in the doorway, illuminated from behind with a long white uh, uh, pajama set on. And I remember saying, "Oh, I got to tell my sister. I shared a room. I shared it with my sister. I got to tell my parents." And she just said, "No, no, this is just for us." And it was such a vivid experience that I later learned was her connecting with me. She's part of my I like to call it my light entourage. I know you call it your team in spirit.
Like, I
And
like entourage. It feels like kind of bougie and fancy. I'm kind of into it.
so I had experiences prior to that where I just had a certain knowing. I didn't know how it what came to be. I just knew things, and I could connect with this like inner wisdom and what my body was telling me, like the sensations in my body that were very affirming. But a few years after that, I kind of shut down all of that because I was teased for being very sensitive. I would cry all the time, and I didn't want to, but I couldn't help it.
It's
But I
just
kind
who
of,
you are.
yeah, and I just kind of shut that down. And for more than a decade, I didn't cry. I couldn't cry until I took a loved one to see a qigong master to address a health concern, and not knowing anything about qigong but hearing great things about this person, I joined my loved one in the session, and I thought they were getting the treatment, and they were. I was too. So unbeknownst
Mm.
to me, I'm getting this treatment. Tears start streaming down my face. I have no understanding as to why that happened. But afterward, the Qigong master talked about blockage in my throat, blockage in my heart, between my throat and my heart. And I mean, it's no surprise I have an autoimmune thyroid issue. But, you think about it, like my voice was silenced. I had this sensitivity to the world that I
Right.
sort of had had shut down for a
Yeah,
long time.
quieted. Yeah.
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 So,
Okay, for people that don't know what that is, how would you explain what a qigong expert is?
oh, sure. So it's a form, it's a practice of traditional Chinese medicine that works with the energy in your body to to eliminate blockages. Actually, acupuncture works with the energy in your body. Qigong works with the energy of the practitioner to help eliminate any blockages of energy flowing through your body. And you can feel it. It almost feels like tingling. If you're excited about something, or let's say your foot's asleep and you feel that tingling sensation, you can feel that if you get acupuncture, if you get qigong, you can feel energy coursing in and around your body. It's really powerful.
Well,
And
I can
like,
feel it right now.
yeah, yeah, I know you're very tuned into energy. And the thing about it is, when I was back in grad school studying integrative healing therapies, around that time, it was like 2011, 2012, my instructor, who started the first integrative care clinic in the United States with a level one trauma center. She was wonderful. She was so excited because I think the British Journal of Medicine or the New England Journal of Medicine came out with a meta analysis that said, okay, everybody, we can stop studying whether acupuncture works. It works. It works for pain. It works in all these ways. So let's stop questioning it. It works. And to have one of the premier academic journals of our time validate that was really powerful. And so, I share that just for anybody listening who's like, well, I don't know, what's that all about, really? It's like, it's worked for thousands of years. It's been validated in Western or allopathic medicine. Let's turn the page on questioning that.
Well, maybe this is a good time for us to talk about energy because I talk about it a lot. Energy, frequency, everything's energy. And as I've been talking with people that are listening to the podcast, they're like, what does that mean? I don't know what you mean by that. So I thought maybe you and I could like dive into that a little bit and just talk about how we use energy and how energy helps us in our lives. Is there anything you want to say about that?
Oh, sure.
You're like,
Gosh.
I have lots of things I'll say about that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We could go so many directions with this. Um, you know, yes, I think about energy like in four ways. There's physical energy, mental energy, emotional energy, and spiritual energy. And it's a nice framework that feels pretty accessible to people. Um, People talk about energy as though it's something we have or don't have, when in fact it's renewable. It's regenerative. Like we don't have energy, we generate energy. And that
Yes.
distinction I think is really important because it helps us realize how much agency we have in working with it, and the ways in which we work with it can be more mechanical in nature, like If you're fatigued in the afternoon, I don't know if anyone else gets the 2 p.m. slump, like go for a walk outside. That's going to shift your energy. But like that's a mechanical way of thinking about it. I think, spiritually, purpose is spiritual energy. Um, I think a lot of what you do as a medium and psychic brings a different lens to understanding and appreciating and working with energy. And so in my life, I mentioned that experience with my grandma back when I was 10, and I had some experiences prior to that too. But it's not something that I've consistently used throughout my life as a source of wisdom and a resource. And even to this day, like I ignore it.
I
So
know. I get it. I do too. I'm human.
so recently I had this experience where I was parking my car at my parents' farm because I was going on an extended road trip with them. And I pull up and I say, "Oh, probably shouldn't park under that tree. The branch might fall." I very much had an intuitive hit, and I feel intuitive hits in my gut. Like it feels almost like a light punch to my gut.
Mm.
And I just flat out ignored it. I just was like, whatever. It'll be fine. Yeah. 2 days into the trip, I learned the tree branch fell on my car, broke out, shattered my rear window, yada, yada, yada. Just a classic example of ignoring that information.
Yeah, I think people assume that when I talk about intuition or inner knowing, the wisdom within, God whispers, all the different ways you want to call that, they think it's like these giant things. And I'm like, no, it's little nudges to pay attention to your everyday life, to like lift your head up and wake up. And I often think that our signs that we get from our team in spirit or our light entourage, as you say, it's oftentimes little nudges in the right direction, or little whispers, or little gut punches, little pieces of intuition that tell us something. And I think it's true in everything. You walk into a room and you're like, something, the energy of this space feels off. Something's off. Or you walk
Oh,
into a room
yes.
and you're like, wow, like I want to be in this room. I'm like magnetically drawn up into this room somehow. Like I think everything has energy. Everything has what I call a vibration.
Yeah. Oh man. I had this experience so tangibly in my first job out of college. I mentioned I worked in marketing for Haagen-Dazs, and at the time they were undergoing a merger between Pillsbury and General Mills. Or no, Pillsbury was selling them to General Mills. Anyway, I worked downtown Minneapolis in the Pillsbury Tower. And I remember thinking like, this is so exciting. Going to the big city, working downtown and in this corporate job. And I get to the space and it's beige burlap cubes. And it was just the biggest wah wah that you'd see. And not only that, but I got a bloody nose all the time, like nearly daily.
That's insane.
Yeah, and I remember thinking, what is happening? This building is not healthy. What is going on? But even without the bloody nose, I knew this was not a good environment. I could feel it in my body. And it's hard for people who don't connect in that way. Maybe they're disconnected from their body's wisdom in that way. But
Yeah.
I I have a hard time being in a space, and it's not about aesthetics. Like I don't need millennial pink, to enjoy a space. But there is there is a wisdom that my body tells me, like, no, this is not good for you, or no, this is not a good space to be in. And that was one very tangible experience.
Yeah, interesting. I think I like when you like say your body was giving you cues. I teach people that all the time in my course. Like your body keeps score, and your body will tell you something long before your conscious mind can understand it, regulate it, and believe it. So like we get little nudges or we get tingles or sensations or things that our body will know long before we can reconcile it consciously.
Yeah, there's actually maybe you've heard of this. Um, your gut is your first brain.
Oh no, I thought you were going to say your body keeps score, but
Oh,
also a good book.
yeah, that book's good. That book's very dense. That one's
Yeah,
a
heavy.
very dense read. But yeah, oh, I'm trying to think of the researcher. I want to say her name is Celeste Pert, but she didn't win she should have won a Nobel Peace Prize for this, but she essentially picked, she was the one who identified what what wisdom, what intelligence is available in your gut long before your brain. Like these receptors in your gut are picking up this information. It's fascinating. I can't remember her name. It'll come to me. But
That's cool.
anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
point being, like when you know, when we say trust your gut, it's not just sort of an unexplainable phenomenon.
Right. I believe it's your subconscious collectively with the energy of your team in spirit, your guardian angels, loved ones on the other side, wise, healed ancestors. Like, I think it's that collective energy plus your own being and your own subconscious and your own higher self. I think it's a collection of all of that in that inner wisdom.
Hmm. Yeah, there are, I, in some respects, I think the way I talk about things is it's rooted in science, and I am all about science and spirituality and the melding of them and sort of the esoteric. I, I very much believe in that stuff.
I actually really adore that about you because you are a researcher, you are an academic. I always feel like my vocabulary expands when I hang out with you. You're just a smart cookie, and you like to know the mechanics of how something works. And so, if
Yeah.
somebody like you can do all of that and say that there is also wisdom beyond those things that aids in those things, that melds those two things together, I mean, I think that that is a powerful message that a lot of people will resonate with.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
how do you
thanks.
reconcile it? How do you piece like science and energy and intuition? Like how do you see them coexisting together or complementing each other?
Yeah, well, hmm, that's a great question. I'm not sure I have a good answer for that. I will say that I'm very comfortable with not knowing. So as much
Yeah.
as I enjoy the scientific method behind things, I'm like there are things that cannot be explained in that. And I'll share an example, a recent one with you. I had a reading with you last fall. I think about it often, and you there were a couple things with that reading that even though we have a long history, you couldn't have known. And and one of them was sort of foreshadowing what would become a really difficult diagnosis for a loved one. And like there's today we don't have a scientific method that can validate that, but it was very months later it was validated by the Mayo Clinic, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so for me, I am comfortable not having to have the answer for everything. And in fact, as we get older, um, life's about living into the questions,
Yeah,
asking better
getting
questions,
curious.
and
Yeah,
yeah,
getting curious with your life. Yeah.
yeah,
And it's true for me too, Megan. Like when people ask me a lot of complex questions about how I am able to do what I do, and I do my best to explain it, but some of it is just not that easy to explain. It's
yeah,
like I just am able to see and feel things that maybe you can't yet. I'm not saying you can't ever, but you can't yet. And if I can
Yeah.
help expose you to something that you maybe couldn't quite pick up on your own, then I'm very grateful to be able to do that. But it is hard to explain, especially to very pragmatic people. My husband's a bit one of those, and he and I have such deep and complex questions. And there are so many times I say exactly what you just said, Megan. Honey, I don't know how to explain that or how to answer that question. But let me reflect on it and get into curiosity about it. And, maybe I will, or maybe I won't, but I think that's a worthy conversation.
Yeah. I've, with this diagnosis of a loved one, I've been asking a lot of questions, and there's a there's a thought leader. He's a Franciscan monk. His name is Richard Rohr, and he's pretty popular. He's got a podcast called Everything Belongs, and each episode walks through a chapter of his book called Falling Upward. The
Mm,
subtitle is Spirituality for the Second Half of Life. And I've been interested in the second half of life, and perhaps even more specifically midlife, for a few years now. Done a lot of research and reading on it, worked with a ton of people as coaching clients in navigating life transitions. And part of what happens in the second half of life is we sort of drop the prominence of the ego, and
mm.
in doing so we open ourselves up to living into the questions, not needing the answers. And his his writings and his podcast have been really helpful for me in this season of my life.
I find that approach to be very expansive. That's a really expansive way to see things, to experience things, and to be curious and open and expanding, what is possible or what wisdom is available to you. And I find the ego and living in, I know everything, I can fix anything, I have it all figured out all by myself, like a very contracting way to see the world, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. There's a softening, I think, that happens, and it's beautiful.
And I
um
I kind of feel like this is really where you and I have such common threads in who we are and how we're showing up and serving in the world right now. Um, we often use this phrasing of living your life from the inside out. You and I talk about that a lot. Um, and I was hoping maybe you could share what that means for you, because it kind of ties into all of the things we've been talking about.
yeah, a big part of the work that I get to do with people is focused on purpose. And just yesterday I was having a conversation with a client, and it was so clear they equated purpose with career or job. And I help them think about contribution and purpose in multiple expressions. And so when I think about mm, energy, and I think about well-being, and I think about expressions of purpose, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, it they all map. You can think about energy in that way. You can think about well-being in that way. You can think about purpose in that way. And so it extends to this idea of a spacious life. Like, let's get curious about our mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual well-being and energy and purpose, and let's express that in the world in whole, aligned, and meaningful ways. Now, those all sound like big, sort of
big,
big
loft,
loose terms.
big lofty vision.
Yeah, but people get down on themselves for, you know, not having, I'll use the term, I don't use this term personally, not finding their purpose. I never say find your purpose. We mine and make purpose. We don't find it. Um, And but it creates an existential crisis for a lot of people, particularly of a certain age, i.e., north of 40.
Yep.
And
It's like you turn 40 and you're like, what am I doing?
yeah, yeah. And so when I think about living from the inside out, it is this fluid, reflective, generative practice. And it is a practice. It's not a fixed state. It's not
I
an
believe
end
that too.
point. So for me, living the inside out is being in dialogue with yourself and being open to multiple expressions of, you know, what you value and your strengths and your interests in the world.
Yeah, I think that's I love the physical, emotional, spiritual, mental. I like thinking about it in that construct. And I also it really resonated with me what you said too. I really believe this. Like we do all this work and sometimes we don't tell anyone, right? We're kind of going on
Mm-hmm.
this inward journey and you're living a parallel life where you're like, externally, I'm no different. No one knows anything different. I'm showing up, I'm clocking in, I'm doing my work, I'm going to the socials, I'm attending the events, I'm doing the things, but internally things are stirring within me and I'm feeling different about things and I'm exploring things. And I think that there's magic that happens when we take what's happening inside of us and we bring it to the outside world and we externalize it in some way, shape, or form. Um, and so I
Yeah.
liked the way that you explained that.
Yeah, that actually prompts me to share something that I've been observing. In the personal development space, there's a lot of people fixated on fixing. And in coaching, we start with the premise that you're already whole, creative, and resourced. You don't need fixing. You're not broken. And I love that that's the starting point. That's one of the reasons I love coaching. But, there's a lot of people who are so focused on improvement. And I think, oof, you know, how, how about acceptance and compassion and love for yourself? And by the way, if in fact you're hard on yourself, you're seeing through this lens, maybe you're feeling lonely. This is something I've experienced. One of the best ways to overcome loneliness is to be of service to others.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't even think it's just about what is a person grappling with internally and how can they then take that out into the world. It's how can the person be in the world and receive the gifts of the world to help shape them internally as well.
Yeah, right. It's a give and take relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You're receiving and giving, and the beauty is when you do both, right? That when you give
Yeah,
and receive in a really aligned way for you.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
But
and
it's
so
tricky.
sometimes I think we miss that in this era of needing to optimize everything. I'm
Yeah,
not really
fair.
into that. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like everything can be better, 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 better. Instead
Yeah.
of just like, maybe that piece of it is literally good enough. And maybe we're meant to be
Mm-hmm.
spending time doing this instead.
Yes.
And so I think that's true, especially in the business world. So I'm curious. I want to like adjust a little bit because one of my favorite things to do is like rapid fire get to know the person on my podcast. And so
Oh,
I have a set of questions and I'm going to ask them to you. And you just tell me what comes forward for you. And they're meant to just be fun, lighthearted things. So we're going to have a little fun. And we've been talking about some serious stuff, which is good,
yes.
by the way. Not a bad thing, a lovely thing. I
Yeah.
could do this all
Yeah.
day, every day. So rapid fire, you're just going to answer. These are a few of my favorite things. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Favorite food.
Uh,
Foods. I'll give you a
um,
couple if you need them.
yeah, I do need a couple. The the gluten-free bolognese from Italian Eatery right across the street from me. That's one of my faves. And these days I'm loving top the tater.
Oh, it's delicious, isn't it? It's a very
Yeah.
Minnesota thing. For all of you listening all around the world, it's like a chive and onion sour cream.
Yeah,
It's
it's so
divine.
good. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I wish I could say it's like, oh, I enjoy a delicious Cobb salad, but yeah, a gluten-free bolognese right now is my favorite food.
With a little top potato and some chips. I like
Yeah.
mine with plain chips. That's how I like to roll. I mean, I
Yeah.
like it on a potato too, but plain chips and a top potato, nothing better.
Yeah.
Okay, if you could travel anywhere, so somebody just dropped a pile of cash in your pocket and said, you have 2 weeks, go, where would you go?
Okay. I've never been to New Zealand. I want to go there.
I love it there. I do. I did my student teaching when I was at Gustavus. My last semester, I did my student teaching in New Zealand.
So fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would love to. I love travel, done a lot of it, but I've never been to New Zealand.
Okay, one of the coolest things for anybody that goes to New Zealand, including you, Megan, in your future life sometime soon. There's this city called Kaikoura on the South Island, and you can go there and get certified or trained, and then you get to go out in a boat in like snorkel gear and swim with wild dolphins. And it's the
Ooh.
coolest experience. When I went, and it's still true today, I follow them on Instagram. They're the coolest. Maybe I'll even tag them in this podcast. But I swam with a pod of 600 wild dolphins the day I got to go out and
Whoa,
do that.
whoa. Okay, so I would love that. I also probably, I'm thinking back to I did a J term in Hawaii and we were snorkeling and some dad wanted the fish to swim around for his son, and so he threw a bunch of fish food out and he didn't see me, and so the fish food surrounded me,
Oh my.
and so the they were like baby sharks.
Oh
I'm pretty
my.
sure which are not, they're not dangerous, right? But it was like I was panicked, and the last thing you want to do when you snorkel is panic because then you can't
True.
breathe and whatever. Anyway, so I was with you until you said the sheer number, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can
Oh
do
no, it was cool. They're all over the place. They swim around you, they play with you. I also love dolphins. They're one of my signs. So, do you get
that.
any signs from animals? Do you get any animals that kind of perk
Yeah,
up or give you signs?
yeah, red cardinals do.
Oh,
And
sure.
yeah, I've my grandma is part of my, well, both my grandmas are part of my life entourage, but more recently my maternal grandmother, whom I had the privilege of caring for as she was living with dementia, when she passed, cardinals showed up the day of her funeral.
Mm.
When a good friend of mine passed, a young woman who died of breast cancer, cardinal was there in the window as I looked outside. So I know that it's loved ones connecting with me.
Yeah, they do come. They come in cardinals a lot, and sometimes blue jays. Those are very common birds that they come and bring signs through.
Hmm.
What about holiday? What's your favorite holiday?
Growing up, it was always Easter, and I think it's because, and so it's probably still Easter. I don't have a strong, like, compelling reason for a favorite holiday now, other than it's a time of renewal. We always talk about January 1st as the start of the new year. It's not. It's not. It's spring. And
Yeah, right. The
and like,
spring equinox.
well, and Ethiopia is on a different like they're in a different year than the rest of us because they operate on the original calendar that the world operated on. And so, like, it's a 13-month calendar. And
Yes.
so yeah, spring is actually the start of the new year, which is why people, if you're listening, go easy on yourself with those
Those New
January
Year's
1st.
resolutions. Kick
Yeah,
them out.
yeah,
Do a
yeah.
spring intention instead.
Yes.
We're going to make that a thing, Megan. Spring intentions. Love that. Okay, so for lots of reasons, spring's your favorite. That's so fun. What
Yeah.
brings you profound joy?
Hmm. Lots of things. I enjoy singing. I like to perform
Mm.
cabaret. That brings me joy. I love moving my body. It doesn't necessarily need to be in the form of a sport, but like just walking outside with friends.
You're also an insane power walker. I don't know anyone who walks faster than you. Maybe my in-laws are like a close second.
Wait, how do you know this? Or where were we that
I just know this about you, Megan.
Oh.
It is
um
also true that you walk very, very fast, correct?
Yeah, well, sometimes. Yes, yes.
You
I do
can.
have a friend. I have a friend who is 5'1", and she is the fastest walker I know.
Oh my.
So, yeah, anyway.
Amazing.
Yeah, joy also, like, I in this season of my life, I'm really hunkering down with family.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And those types of situations bring us closer too when our family goes through
Yeah.
things too. Um,
Yeah.
okay, what advice would you give people that are listening to this to strengthen their connection with their intuition or to, we talked about physical, emotional, spiritual, mental energy and well-being. Like, what is like one or two things that people could do to shift their energy or strengthen their intuition or the wisdom within?
Yeah. So first, I think is to think of it as a practice, an ongoing practice. And this is
Yeah.
something that you've been really instructive with me around. I've been curious about all things metaphysical for decades. But when we reconnected a few years ago, you talked about your commitment to a practice. So that might mean free writing. This is something actually I have a lot of my clients do when they're sort of stuck with a persistent thought pattern. Free writing whatever's in your noggin is so important.
Love it.
And just not for a long time. In fact, from a writing for health standpoint, you really wouldn't want to do it longer than 10 or 15 minutes. But free writing, whatever comes to your mind, allows you to get onto paper things that are rummaging around in your unconscious. And by the way, 90 to 95% of every of our days are lived from our unconscious. So it's a really great way to kind of unearth maybe what's getting in the way for
Totally. I
you.
love that. I think that's a great technique. In fact, in my courses, I'll teach people like a rage on the page technique, which is like get all of it out around something that's very hard for you. And then I teach them how to do intuitive writing, how to just write from a place of intuitive guidance to receive wisdom on things that they're going through. So very similar to something you just said.
Yeah, the other thing I think is, that's a helpful one because so many of us live from our neck up, we're just
Yes,
like,
in our heads.
yeah, I am in that space often. And so then the ability to allow your body to receive that wisdom. I mean, this is true whether you're dealing with like an autoimmune condition, general inflammation. It's like our bodies are telling us stuff. We just need to set the chatter aside so we can actually
Yes.
receive the wisdom that they're telling us. And so that can happen in a few ways. I mean, walking in nature without any sort of like headphones on.
Yeah, devices. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful way. Um, I like to do energy clearings, which I know you teach people to
Yeah.
do. Yeah, so
I think
attending
those
to
are
that is
beautiful.
important.
And by the way, none of those things that you shared are hard or complicated or are something people wouldn't know how to do.
And they're free.
And they're free. Yeah, exactly. Breathe, meditate, go for a walk in nature, clear out energy. Just think I clear out anything I picked up from anybody else. Like those are just such great tips to just start living a more reflective and introspective life. And I think that there's so much magic in that. So, which I wanted to segue now. Megan, you and I are doing something together very soon. And I wanted to tell the world about it. This podcast is our way to announce it to the world. So if you thought, okay, Megan and Kara, I freaking adore them. I love them. I'm into it. I like their vibe. I like the way they talk and think and process. I'm into it. So we're going to be doing an inside out retreat. Megan, tell them a little bit about what we're going to be doing.
Yes, yes. First of all, I'm really excited to partner with you on this.
Me too.
It's a half day experience, and the broad theme is inside out. This specific event is focused on inner peace and outer purpose. See what we did there, folks?
Yes. Inside out. Inner peace, outer purpose. Love it.
Yeah, yeah, and it's really experiential in that there's going to be time for some reflection and writing. We're going to teach some techniques and exercises, ways to cultivate both peace and purpose. And, part of, I think, like you're formally trained as a teacher. I taught in higher ed. Like it's in our hearts to to share this with folks, but to
Yes.
do so in a way that's a bit more experiential than like sitting in a classroom or watching behind a screen online. And so, bring your beach towel or yoga mat, because we're going to be working with our bodies, we're going to be working with our breath, we're going to be working with imagery, um, hypnosis, a
All,
few other
yes.
modalities.
Yes, all the things really to truly learn how to quiet that monkey mind, that noisy chatter that gets in the way of us knowing what's right for us and what our next right step might be, and then aligning that right to like you said, aligning it to your outward purpose. And I'm so honored to do this with you too, Megan. So this is
Mm.
going to be on Sunday, July 14th in Minneapolis. We rented this beautiful rooftop space. It has a gorgeous room, outdoor rooftop grass area, and it's just so cool and beautiful. So go to the lake in Minnesota, live your best life, and then come back a couple hours earlier and spend Sunday afternoon with Megan and I.
Yeah, we promise to have fun.
Yeah, and you never know. We might have some leftover fireworks and get in trouble. No, I promise we won't do that. But we really do want you guys to come and hang out with us. We have a limited number of seats, and we really hope that you all liked this podcast, thought it was interesting, and said, yeah, I'm into it. I want to hang out with Megan and Kara in July in Minneapolis. So in the show notes, there'll be some details about that and a link for you to go register and grab a ticket and hang out with us. But again, it's a pretty limited number of people. We want to keep it really small and intimate so we can get to know each other and really roll up our sleeves and do the work. So
Yes.
we're both pumped about that. Okay, Megan, how can people follow you, connect with you, work with you? What are some of the ways that you show up and serve in your business, and how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah. So I have a website, meghankrause.com,
Don't forget
MEGHANKRAUSE.
the H. Meghan, Megan.
Yeah. So I have a website. You can read a little bit more about me there, but also, book a free discovery session to see if we're a fit. I like to say it's like dating, and believe me, I know the world of dating. but if you're at all curious about what how to be with life transitions more skillfully, maybe you're curious about what's next for you, maybe you have an idea of what's next for you but you're not sure how to make it happen, like, we can chat. So website is one place, Instagram is another. I'm not super active because I live a spacious life and I'm offline doing things,
Yeah,
but
you're
you can.
not as connected to the gram, and I love that about you.
Yeah. Also LinkedIn, you can
Yeah.
find me on there too.
Yeah. So
But
follow Meghan Krause on LinkedIn, go to her website, check her out. Megan, I just adore you. And I've known you for many, many years, but the way that we have reconnected in the last 2 or 3 years has been such a gift for me. And
oh,
I
I feel the
just
same way.
adore you.
Oh, I feel the same way.
Well, thank you for coming on the podcast. Truly, truly, thank you so much. And I hope you all enjoyed our chat with Meghan Krause.
Thank you.